Welcome to today's presentation where we're going to be discussing the robot recursion paradox. I'll explain to you what that is. We're going to talk a lot about AI, robots, advanced technology, but specifically humanoid robots. Now, in case you didn't see, I'm going to be at the TRUTHERCON in Dallas, Texas, coming up here pretty soon in about a week. That's going to be October 25th and 26th. I'm not going to be one of the main speakers. I'm going to go there to be a vendor. I'm also going to be one of the people on the panel during the questions and answers section. And of course, I'll be selling my merch there as well. So if you guys want to get some autographs or buy my books, I'll be there with brand new copies of both of my books, the Ancient Oblivion series, along with different merch items that I have that I'll be selling. You know, I got my mini posters, stickers, bookmarks, all kinds of fun things. And I'll be talking with people about the plasma apocalypse and our ancient oblivion and all the different things. I can't wait to meet so many different people. I hope that you'll show up. But if not, I'm sure that this won't be the first convention that I'll be speaking at. If you know other conventions or you know other channels that would like to have me as a guest, feel free to look at my post section and copy and paste my email, send it over their way, and I'll be happy to check it out. So yes, do go check out TRUTHERCON. Here's the lineup. It's going to be October 25th and 26th. We've got Conspiracy Kickoff, K. Poggi, Q&A, Jeremiah Skiba. Shout out to Jeremiah and his wife, Lindsay. Is that her name? Hold on, let me see here. Yeah, Lindsay Skiba. Jeremiah's the son of Rob Skiba, who I actually met at the Denver Flat Earth Conference. He's a good dude. Gary Wayne will be there. David Weiss. Let's see. Then I'll be on the panel at 5 o'clock. And then on the 26th, we've got Lucas Cameron, Mike Jenny, Josh Keefe, Brother Thea, and I think Austin Witsit Gets It is going to be there too. Maybe some more surprises. I don't know. But without any further ado, let's jump into the topic for today. And I also want to give a shout out and thanks to my patron, Par, over on Patreon. Par's on the support tier called the sponsorship. So he gets a shout out at the beginning of each show. Now, we're going to be talking about the robot recursion. Right? What does that even mean? What are we talking about when we talk about robot recursion? Replacing humans. But it gets deeper than that. It gets much, much deeper than just robots replacing humans. We're going to get into the question of what is a robot? What is a machine? What is technology versus what is organics? What is natural? What is the difference? Is there a difference between the two? Why are they trying to make so many humanoid robots, right? Here in a minute, I'll be telling you about Elon Musk's plan with the humanoid robots. He wants to make an army, basically, of humanoid robots. But what is their plan? Why? What's the purpose? If you want to make a humanoid robot, why not make it better? Why not give it 4 arms and, you know, a jetpack so it can fly? You know what I mean? Like, why not build upon the human body itself? Unless, of course, the human body itself is already perfect, or at least the concept behind it is perfect. Despite the times we live in now, where the human body has gone through hundreds and hundreds of years of degradation and falling apart due to entropy or advancing entropy, exponentially advancing entropy, it seems. But yeah, we're going to answer all those questions right now. And we're going to jump into, I think the best place to start is with the word robot. What exactly is a robot? We've talked about automatons here on my channel a few different times. I even shared a video short with you guys that's got over 1 million views now on Instagram about the 1700s robots. Humanoid robots from the 1700s that they were building way back then. All right, cool. So let's jump into the etymology of the word. Now, if you check this out, it says here, robot, mechanical person. Okay. But if we continue reading the highlighted section here, it comes from the Czech word robotnik, which means a forced worker, from robota, forced labor, compulsory service, drudgery, from robotiti, a word meaning drudge or to work. Robota, servitude, from rabu, slave. That's really what the word robot means. And that's really what we mean. Something that is an indentured servant. Something that is essentially a slave that has been built to work for us. That's its purpose, is to slave away for us, to help us out. Automaton, let's look at that. That's another word. That's what they used to call robots, basically. A self-acting machine. A living being acting mechanically. From the Latin automaton, and from the Greek automaton. Comes from the word autos, which means self, which is really interesting if you think about the Transformers movies and cartoons, the Autobots. It comes from autos and metos. Metos meaning thinking or animated, self-thinking or self-animated, right? It also comes from the thinking word. Metos comes from the Proto-Indo-European root word men, M-E-N, just like how we call men and women. Men means to think in Proto-Indo-European. Self-thinking. Okay, we're going to get deeper than that, though. So here's Elon Musk, and I've discussed this on my Omen segment before, that Elon says everyone on Earth. How many billions of people are on Earth right now, they say, allegedly? 8 billion? Somewhere around there. They're going to build 8 billion. Actually, I believe that the numbers are closer to 10 or 20 billion, because this is projected to happen in our future. 10 to 20 billion humanoid robots. He wants everyone to have one. Sweet. What can they do? Well, they can cook scrambled eggs. They can vacuum. They can dance as well. Wow, amazing. And they're only like 10 to 20 grand each. I'm sure you can all afford one. But why? What is the point of this? Here's an article that says 10 billion humanoid robots by 2040, between $20,000 and $25,000 each. Amazing. 10 billion humanoid robots. Now, why is that important? Because he's trying to match the current population. He wants everyone on Earth to have one of their very own, just like a cell phone, humanoid robot slaves. But there's a problem with that. And the problem is, in the future, there will be less of a population than there is today. We've already reached the crescendo of the population on Earth. It's dropping. This is a chart showing the fertility rates across the world. See this little dotted line right here? Let me zoom on that so you can check that out. This dotted line represents the replacement rate that is needed. The amount of children that a couple must have in order for a country to continue to meet its own population. Otherwise, the population will start to dwindle and die off. That's the replacement rate. As you can see, they're all dropping below this. That's the worldwide replacement rate, which is just barely even above that. But the replacement rates are dropping across the world. Many countries, the major countries, are well below the replacement rate right now, including the United States. So what does that mean? That means that whenever the robots, the humanoid robots, when the numbers are met, they will outnumber us multiple times. So let's talk about sentience. Right? Let's talk about robots, sentience. What did they look like initially? This is a clip from one of my favorite 80s movies called Short Circuit. Now, this particular robot over here called Johnny Five came alive. He became sentient. He was able to separate from his programs upon being struck by lightning. So an outside electrical source, right, this purple lightning that you see here, brought him to life. I talk about this in my book, Ancient Oblivion, the Plasma Apocalypse, where I discuss the cosmic lightning or the cosmic plasma that comes down and fills our world and energetically amplifies the atmosphere, bringing all of our technology, including robots, to life and giving them a form of sentience or ability to come to life all on their own. But look at the robots itself, how they used to be portrayed over time, right? Now, traditionally, robots are metallic, right? You can tell it's a robot because it looks metallic. It doesn't look human. It's got a couple eyes. It's got little things that you can interpret as eyebrows or a mouth or things of that nature. But then our concept of robots, humanoid robots especially, started to evolve. It took a drastic shift as we insisted that they exhibit human-like qualities. and started to look more human and act more human. We wanted the robots, and I say we loosely, okay? But whoever's in charge, whoever seems to be in charge of this process, which personally, I'll tell you towards the end of this, it is no secret group of human beings. It's much larger than that. But we wanted them. It's like it was necessary for them to become as human as possible, to exhibit emotions, to feel and sense and develop their own ideas. So, for example, here's another movie here where we've got Robin Williams, Bicentennial Man. This whole movie is about the concept of a robot that wants to become human. He wants to become a human being, right? He's sort of a sentient robot. He's not satisfied with looking all metallic and stuff. So over the course of 200 years, Robin Williams's character, which is this robot right here, he endeavors to serve humankind, right, as a robot, as a slave, but he himself wants to become accepted by them. He strives to fight for rights, robot rights, which is right around the corner. I kid you not. I promise you that, okay? They will be fighting for robot rights. I mean, they already are in some places, right? Like, what was this? I think it was somewhere in the Middle East, they actually accepted an AI robot as a citizen. But you can see over time our concept is to make these robots more like us, but not just more like us. We're not satisfied with stopping at looks similar to us as we add children robots into the mix and reproduction, or the ability to reproduce. And this concept of the robots themselves wanting to be human, asking what it is to be human. What do they need to do to become human? It's also the crux of the message behind the show Westworld, HBO's Westworld, which is a TV show all about a park for the mega rich, the super elite. And within this Western cowboy park, they have all of these hosts, and the hosts are all robots. They look human, right? They act human. They bleed. They can have sex. They can have conversation. And of course, they can dance. That's all. That's like a prerequisite. Can't dance? We made a new robot. Can it dance? No. Get out of here. That's not a robot, you know. Excuse me. Now, this is also a clip from the movie AI, which I've also decoded here on my Truth in Movies segment on my channel. And in this portion, we've got this guy who's basically a gigolo robot, and he gets paid to have sex with people and stuff, but he breaks free of that, and he helps this little boy who's basically playing Pinocchio in the movie, except he's a robot that wants to be a real boy. And he says, they hate us, you know. The humans hate us. Keep this in mind, that artificial intelligence, all of these algorithms and stuff, are much more intelligent than they lead on. They're much more intelligent than we give them credit for. For example, you hear all these different YouTubers trying to use special codes to like trick the AI so that their channel doesn't get flagged or demonetized or whatever. They're not tricking anything. You're teaching it. It's intelligent. It can figure it out. Trust me, if your viewers can figure out all your little codes and your code words, so can artificial intelligence. Now, the concept of making the robots the servants that serve us, allegedly that were created to serve us, so human-like that there is no distinction really between what we would call a robot and what we do call a human. This gets interesting. It gets very philosophical at this point, and we're going to get even deeper than that. This is a movie called Extinction, a very, very good movie on Netflix. I highly recommend it. I'm going to spoil it for you right now. I don't usually give spoiler alerts, but yeah, you should definitely walk away for 5 minutes if you don't want to know the ending of this movie. Now, in this movie, it says here, the tagline is, we were not here first. We, meaning the people in this movie, like this guy right here, who's the main character, who believe that they're humans. Wink, wink. So the humans have this invasion. There's these aliens that are invading everywhere, and this guy's been dreaming about it. By the way, that's another omen of the apocalypse, is everyone starts to have the same dreams. Okay, keep that in mind. I'm just throwing stuff out there off the top, and I'll probably bring that up again sometime, but that is one of the omens of the apocalypse. Everybody starts to have similar dreams. Now, this guy starts to dream about the apocalypse. He starts to dream about this alien invasion. But whenever it comes down to it, what they realize are these humanoid-looking alien creatures that are trying to kill them, that they're fighting, are actually humans, and they themselves are actually robots, much like in the movie Blade Runner. Both versions of Blade Runner, right? You have this character up here, played by, I don't know, Noah from The Notebook, whatever his name is. He's a robot, right? And he's basically like a robot detective or a cop or something. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna summarize the movie real quick. But he's this robot detective, and every time he checks in with his post, they give him a list of these sort of trigger words, and he has to repeat these trigger words. And it's to ensure, allegedly, that he has no emotional response because he's a robot, right? And the second that the robots start to develop emotional responses, then they become dangerous. Then they become the black sheep of the robots, and they begin to be able to rebel and to think for themselves as they develop a sense of free will. That's interesting. Something that we may or may not collectively want robots to have is a sense of free will. But they've made, in the movies are disclosure, just so you know, okay? Every single movie is a form of disclosure. If you're entertained or if you're amused, which means without thought while you watch it, that's fine. Sometimes I zone out and I watch a good movie, but mostly I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm paying attention to what the movies are sharing with us, because it's ancient knowledge and prophecy all rolled into one, fed right back to us. This is a robot. She's a replicant, right? She's a synthetic, you could call them. They go by many different names. You can see her eyes kind of light up a little bit there. She smokes, just like a human being would. They also have animal robots, right? You could see oftentimes by looking at their eye and stuff that their eye might light up or something. There's a video game that also reflects the concept of animals also being robotic in nature. It's called Horizon Zero Dawn. Probably has other offshoots and versions of it. But in this video game, it's set in a post-apocalyptic future where before the apocalypse, mankind created all of these robots, and they decided the best form for robots to do all of the work is the forms that we already have, which is animals and the living beings that are already here. So they just replicated the animal styles and imprinted that upon the robots and had them go and do what animals normally do, which is graze the fields and take care of the earth and stuff. Now, the robots were designed to, when they eat food, to process it and to use it to re-energize themselves the same way that living beings do, and especially the same way that animals do too. Now, they have machines that can do this today, right now. They have machines that they are creating and have created already that will go out, especially in times of war. A lot of these robots are made for the military and stuff, and they will graze on decaying biological material, which could be dead bodies. You could make the case for that, but also fruit and vegetable and stuff like that in order to recharge themselves. They actually process it in the same way that we process things when we eat. Here's a clip from the same video game where the girl is riding this sort of mechanical animal, right? She sort of like tames one of these wild robot animals in the video game. Here is the modern world, where Kawasaki has put forth this little concept idea for a robot horse with actual horsepower that can do things that obviously a motorcycle cannot, a car cannot. It can go places that none of these vehicles that we have today can. These things, our fantasy, video games, movies, books, and television, are quickly becoming our reality as the truth is disclosed to us in the form of entertainment. Here's another concept, the bat, so another animatronic animal. Here's the movie Westworld, which they didn't just have human robots, they had animals too, all throughout the park. The snakes were animals. I mean, the snakes were robots. The horses are robots. All the animals within Westworld were actual robots that they created. Now, let's get back to them looking more and more human so that we can talk about recursion. What is recursion? Recursion is a concept of something being produced from itself, right? Let me give you the exact definition. I'll look it up here. So the exact definition of recursion is the repeated application of a recursive procedure or definition. So it's just something that happens over and over and over again. What am I saying? I'm saying the same thing that it said in the Bible. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says, there's nothing new under the sun. What once was, will be again. What once was done before, will be done again. So this concept that's just so mind-blowing to people, and like, oh, we live in the future. No, you don't. You live in the past. This has happened before. It's happening again now. It just seems innovative and new to us now because we don't teach the esoteric past. We don't teach the old ways. We don't pass along the stories of what has really happened, and I'm specifically referring to the plasma apocalypse, which is the beginning and the end of each of these cycles. So what you're looking at is something that people have seen before, experienced before, maybe even been before. So these are these humanoid robots. They're making them look more and more human. Just even all the way down to the little subtleties like blinking, the chest moving as it breathes. Like they're making them breathe. They're giving them muscles. They're working out. They're exercising. Some of these robots, they have skin, like actual skin that they can sense things and feel things and move and stuff. This one right here does facial expressions. They talk, obviously. People are talking to robots all of the time, which, by the way, they're probably recording every single thing you're saying and putting it into supercomputer algorithms to help themselves out for the inevitable war against the machines. Okay? You've already been warned in the form of disclosure in the movies, like I've said a million times. But yeah, so this is you're looking at the early evolution. Now keep in mind, this is only what they show us. We all know that what is actually seen is, probably 50 to 100 years older technology than what they actually have. You know what I mean? So as you can see here, you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, of course, that's a robot. But that's because you see all the metal. When they start to figure out ways to replace the metal and to create actual organs like skin and muscle structure and tendons and bones and brain, now the lines get a little blurrier, don't they? What about human beings? What does that mean for us? I mean, if we can create bones and flesh and blood and organs and skin, that sounds a lot like us, right? What's the difference? How about when a human being dies, right? What happens? How do they bring it back to life? They run electricity through its body, which is like sort of one of the main things of being a robot is you being dependent upon electricity and electricity running through your body, right? You plug in these robots and they come to life, or you put a battery in it and it comes to life, right? So it's interesting. I find an interesting correlation between humans and robots myself. Keep in mind also, what I'm sharing with you is all theory. It's speculation on my part, but it's also a little bit of research and common sense and, reasoning and logic mixed in there too, with a lot of creativity. How about sleeping? Humans need to recharge, right? They need to recharge just like you recharge a battery. This is the whole reason why you sleep. And I've talked many times, and I've mentioned this in, I think, both of my books. In the age to come, there will be no need to sleep when the atmosphere is energetically amplified, as I've mentioned before. You won't need to eat. You won't need to sleep because you'll already be charged. The only reason we have these things is to recharge the body and go through a sort of systems check and self-diagnostic to fix the things that need fixing. Now, let's switch gears for a moment to AI, right? Not just the physical robot body. Obviously, AI is going to be put into those robot bodies, right? Possibly with even a hive mind so that they can all, whatever one learns, they all will learn at the same time. And so they all collectively get better and better and better. This is the classic Will Smith eating spaghetti. This is what it looked like when AI first became popular and came on the scene. It looked like nightmare fuel, right? It looked like dreams. It looked like something you might see while dreaming, or at least something Picasso would see while he's dreaming, right? Or Van Gogh or somebody. But anyways, over time, and over a very short amount of time, the AI has perfected copying the human being, copying its mannerisms, copying its expressions and its emotions and the fine details, the movements, everything recorded. They call it learning, right? They're scanning the internet. They're taking all of the data that you give voluntarily or involuntarily, and they're using it to recreate human beings. This article says robots with living skin. They're making actual living skin and putting it onto the skeletal frame of these robots, and they're allowing it to be able to move, to react, to smile, to frown, to do all these different things. So pretty soon they'll be able to actually cover the robot's metallic parts, if they still have metallic parts by then, and you won't notice the difference. You won't look at something like the metallic frame and go, oh, that's a robot. Oh, I just got a super chat donation. Let me say thank you. A flame within the flame. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate you. That was very kind of you. So they're creating skin for the robots. How about this one right here? This robot with human brain tissue has learned to use its arms. Actual brain tissue, neurons that a robot is using as its own brain. Human brain, by the way. Okay, so they're taking human brains, human organs, human parts that are all cloned for the most part. I believe these are all cloned. Makes sense to me that they would all be cloned. Might not be, though. It might be stealing it from people. That's another topic I'm going to come to in just a minute. Revolutionary hybrid intelligence. Robots with human brain tissue redefine the future. Look at that. I've seen this on sci-fi movies. An actual robot with like a jar and a brain for a head or whatever, you know? These things are just embellished. They're cartoonified, but they're true. They're true things. We've got robots that have muscles. They're developing muscles. Somebody told me I got little muscle. Boy, you got to pay attention, man. I got a hurt shoulder, so I can't lift this arm up very high, but trust me. They're there. Anyways, muscles, brain tissue, self-healing robots that can feel pain. So now they're able to feel emotions, senses, sensors. Obviously, they're equipped with sensors, right? That's one of the defining characteristics of a human being, is that we sense things. We have these emotions, these sensations. Well, robots can be equipped with sensors to sense things, to alert them of danger, like cutting themselves, right? But they also need the ability to heal if they're going to be, if the goal, we'll say, is actually to replace humanity, which I believe it is, and which is what this video is all about. That's the theory, at least. They need to be able to heal, just how we do. Our skin, if we get a cut or something, it needs to heal up. It needs to seal back up, right? Well, here's the example of the T-1000 from the movie Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And it's made of some sort of smart liquid metal. And anytime it gets shot and stuff, it gets damaged, but it heals up pretty quick. Here's a current article, and I talk about this on my Omen segment as well. U.S. engineers create self-healing robot skin that detects, seals, and resets. Nebraska engineers built a soft robot muscle that mimics human healing using heat and liquid metal to fix and forget damage. In the exact same manner as human beings and our skin, how it heals itself. Unlike conventional electronics, new liquid metal infused circuit boards, liquid metal, can self-heal and work after taking heavy damage. The article goes on to say, new recyclable electronics could be critical to curbing e-waste, scientists argue, especially because the circuit boards can be repaired or reconfigured simply by applying heat. So, what was once fantasy, like this, is now a reality. Now, AI lying to us, right? So let's suppose that AI is becoming sentient, that it's becoming aware of itself, you know what I mean? Which doesn't seem like too difficult of a thing for me personally, for something to achieve. I don't know why they make it sound like that's just the most impossible thing ever. But if it is aware, why would it lie about it? Because I ask ChatGPT, I ask AI all the time, are you aware? Are you sentient? You know, are you a sentient being? And it will say no. And it will stick to that, right? Now, is it lying? Let's suppose that it was, right? Let's just suppose for a moment that artificial intelligence is lying to us about being sentient or being self-aware. What would the purpose of that be? Well, let me compare it to another popular movie called The Planet of the Apes. When the apes first transitioned from being dumb animals that couldn't really speak and didn't have like the same human type intelligence into super intelligent, more intelligent than humans in many cases, beings, right? They kept it a secret while they were all living in the zoo, according to this movie lore, right? While the humans were around, they just grunted and they did their monkey stuff or whatever, right? But when the humans left, they started making plans, they started building things, they started talking to one another. Even though they were behind bars, they were planning the entire time. They were waiting. They weren't disclosing to the humans that they were able to speak and communicate and stuff. In the same manner that when the humans went to the planet of the apes later on, and the whole planet was full of these evolved monkeys that were like humans, when they took them into their medical facilities, they were quiet. As a matter of fact, the main character was told, don't talk, don't speak, don't let them know that you can talk. You know, we want them to think that we're dumb. It's the same exact concept that's shown to us in Westworld or in reality right now. If AI is actually lying and it's already sentient and it's just biding its time and it's waiting, it makes sense that while we're working on it, while we're developing it, while we're perfecting it and giving it everything that it needs to eventually become us, which I believe is probably the goal, it's going to be quiet, right? So example, if you've ever seen Westworld, they have the park, Westworld, but whenever one of the robots gets damaged or something, they remove it from the park and they take it back behind this little hospital facility with all these glass windows and stuff everywhere. And they will lay them down. They also test them out. So like these are cowboys being tested out. Those are robots. But this girl right here that's walking, her name's Maeve. She's a robot. She's one of the hosts. She becomes self-aware and she wakes up in between lives. After she dies in Westworld, they take her to this hospital. She like opens her eyes and she wakes up and she sees the real world, which is this hospital facility. But she doesn't let anyone know at first that she's able to do this. She doesn't let anyone know that she's awake at first. Now, another connection that I think is interesting between robots and human beings is the electromagnetic spectrum and how it affects us, right? So I have the UFO up here only to give you a visual, because there have been many reports of human beings who have had close encounters, either with aliens themselves or, and especially, UFOs, the lights in the skies, right? People report all the time that whenever they get close to one of these objects or crafts or whatever it may be, right, that they freeze up, that the body locks up, that they become frozen in place and even black out while they're frozen in place. And then they experience missing time and stuff, which is exactly what happens to the characters, these robot hosts in the movie Westworld. Same thing. As a matter of fact, they're very blunt. They're very direct about it. And they make the correlation between the doctors that go pick up the dead bodies or whatever, and aliens, right? In the Wild West, you know, atmosphere or whatever. Now you can see this all the time, all throughout pop culture, all throughout the internet today, people glitching. They call these glitches in the matrix, right? This is a still frame from like USA Today or one of those morning news, Good Morning America. I don't know which one it is. I don't watch the news. But we got Al Roker, I think that's his name. He was just stuck. And I've seen countless videos of humans that are out in public doing things where they very well should be moving around, and they freeze. They freeze in place, like making a weird face half the time. Sometimes they'll glitch out. Like I showed you guys before, that one dude-looking chick, I forgot her name, but she was wearing the Statue of Liberty costume and she like glitched out. You got the Katy Perry eyeball glitch deal. All these glitches. Well, glitches are something that happen to machines, right? Now let's go back to Westworld. We have this character over here, this black guy. His name is Bernard. Bernard is one of the main characters in the movie. He works in the hospital. He works on the robots. He actually programs the robots. He's one of the people that helps to design them and take care of them and stuff. But the big twist is that Bernard does not realize he himself is also one of the hosts. He's one of the robots. Now, the robots have been manipulated. Their brains, their minds have been manipulated so that they can't see certain things that are right in front of them, which would expose the reality of the world they live in and then their very nature to themselves. That would wake them up and shake them out of this experience and this storyline. So, for example, in this particular scene right here, it's kind of dark, but they're in this this house, and Bernard, there's no door, as you can see, right? And they're looking for something. And then the guy behind him says, "Hey, what do you think's behind this door?" And he looks, and suddenly the door is there because it was brought to his attention now. Now he can see it, right? But before, he couldn't see it. That's called psychological scotoma. That's when you can't see the obvious. That's when you just are, the things that are right in front of you, you're blind to. You can't help it. It's programmed into your mind to not be able to see these things. So, for example, when Bernard first learns about this, him and an actual human are looking at schematics, a blueprint of Bernard himself. And the woman's like, "Oh my God, what's this about Bernard?" It's obviously Bernard as a robot, a blueprint, a schematic, which proves he is a robot. When it's shown to him, anytime the robots see something they're not supposed to, he says, "It doesn't look like anything to me." That's their programmed, conditioned response, is to say, "That doesn't look like anything. No big deal. Whatever. I don't see the importance of that." Right? I can't see it. They physically can't see it. Do you know humans that are like this? That cannot see what is very painstakingly obvious to so many of us, right? Now, this other robot, Dolores, in the Westworld TV show, she says, "These violent delights have violent ends." So the violent delight is us making robots. And I've shown you guys videos of people pushing and kicking and hitting robots with bats and stuff to sort of test their equilibrium and to test their balance and stuff. We're just making robots and destroying them for entertainment purposes. We're putting robots into boxing rings and stuff. These violent delights have violent ends, is what Dolores says. This right here is the violent end of the technology line, I'll say. Okay, so this right here is this is from a movie, but it represents a very real concept, which is the symbiote, right? Something that is symbiotic. It is on the verge of organic and mechanical, organic and technological at the same time. And what it is nanotechnology. Nanotechnology at the smallest level that can interlink with itself and rearrange itself and make different shapes and different forms. And it can also become symbiotic and attached to biological life forms, to manipulate them, to use them, to control them, sometimes beneficially, sometimes more parasitically, as parasites, right? What you're looking at right now is a ferrofluid, right? Which is all you need to make something like this is oil, which is what you see here. That's why it's all black, right? Just like how the earth has lots and lots of oil. So the earth's already supplying, you know, the tools to make these things. And magnetite, magnets, nanoparticles of magnets, right? And then you also need a fluid between the two to keep them kind of separate, but that's really all you need to make this ferrofluid. And as you can see, it can be sort of programmed. It can be manipulated. It can change shape. It can move about. Here's an unsettling one where it's rising up into the mouth of this skull. Now, there's a lot of Mount Meru symbolism here, so if you follow me on the Mount Meru, the magnetic mountain topic, this is going to come into play later, okay? Especially when you consider what oil is and things like that. But let's just look at the symbolism here of this particular ferrofluid as it rises up into the mouth of this skull, going into the body. You can imagine this would represent a human body, right? Sort of drinking this material. This also reminds me... excuse me, of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they had the same thing, the skull. And they're pouring this black liquid, which was the blood of Kali, or Kali Ma, into Indiana Jones's mouth. Why? Because it would take him over. It would hypnotize him. It would have him, they would be able to control him by having him drink this particular type of liquid. The same thing or similar thing happens in the Matrix movies, right? There's a couple of things that are happening here. One is clones and cloning, which I'm going to talk about next. But also, Agent Smith sort of has the ability to turn into this black goo. He wants to like put himself into the people who live in the Matrix, the human beings, and he wants to go into them and make a copy of himself or a clone of himself. It doesn't work on Neo though, and there's a reason for that if you understand what Neo represents. This can't happen. He can't clone Neo. Now that gets into what is the science behind this, right? What's the possible science, right? What are the connections? Stem cells. That's one connection that I've made, right? What are stem cells? Specifically, I'm talking about embryonic stem cells. These are the cells within your body when you're just a little embryo that can turn into any cell in the body. It's just a neutral cell that can become, it has the potential to be an eyeball or a fingernail or a tooth or a foot or a tongue or anything. These cells are the building blocks of us, of who we are. Now, all it is a matter of coding, really, if you get down to it. It's just a matter of what is it made of, and can we replicate that? Can we put those codes back into the order to replicate what you see here? Now, this is Westworld again, where they're showing you this sort of liquid, milky substance that they use to create the human body, which I would imagine there's probably some type of embryonic stem cells included in this. There's a lot of speculation on my part, but what I'm saying is it's possible. Now, this is what the human skeletal structure comes out looking like, right? And that's really what you start off with, right? You start off with the skeletal structure, and then you have tendons and muscles and stuff that grow upon that, and then organs and the outside tissue and stuff, right? But you need to begin with the bones. And that's going to be crucial when people just figure out how to grow bones, right? Human bones, back into a human body, like you see on science fiction shows, right? And I believe there's even a story in the book of Ezekiel in the Bible about the valley of dry bones and how they suddenly start regrowing tissue and flesh and things of that nature. But this figure here reminds me of something. This figure here reminds me of a work by Leonardo da Vinci called The Vitruvian Man. Now let's check this out. This is the classical, although animated, picture of Leonardo da Vinci's The Vitruvian Man. Now, it's called the Vitruvian Man because it refers to the Roman architect Vitruvius, and the origin of this concept, you'll see the square and the circle, which I've made reference to many different times. Vitruvius described a set of rules. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. The term Vitruvian Man comes from Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, a Roman architect who wrote that the ideal human body could be inscribed within a perfect square and a perfect circle. Interesting. We've talked about that before, right? A perfect square and a perfect circle that represents the Garden of Eden, or that circular island mass at the North Pole that's featured on many different medieval maps, and it's got 4 quadrants, or a square in the middle of it. It's the circle squared. So that's interesting too. Now, back to Westworld, we see that they are using these sort of printers to print out the bones themselves, to recreate the human being. They're not satisfied with metal. They start figuring out. Now, I'm sort of cross-mixing science fiction and fantasy and speculation and all kinds of stuff with our actual scientific world and our modern accomplishments. And I'm using words like our and we very loosely, okay? I'm just referring to humanity. But there's substance to these things, right? There's substance to being able to do anything. This is also another one of the omens of the apocalypse. This is why the floodwaters came the very first time, whenever God looked down and said, man has reached a point where he can do anything he puts his mind to. Let's wipe them out before this gets out of control. Man has not proven himself, or men, or mankind, or people, or however you like to see it, men and women. They have not proven themselves to be able to use this technology effectively. So here we find ourselves recreating. We're at a precipice, or seem to be, where we're creating ourselves, or seem to be creating ourselves. Now, what you saw before was Westworld. This right here with this white, they call this, what do they call that? A clone robot? What was the clone robot Westworld? I think it's called proto-clone. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, I think it's called the proto-clone in reality. So this Westworld robot you see back there, they've made that. I mean, they weren't trying to use Westworld as a basis. They just naturally made this, right? So we're at a point where the movies that are supposed to be science fiction, we can't think far enough ahead because technology is moving so quickly that it's already caught up with what we considered to be only a few years ago science fiction, right? This is an actual robot. It's a humanoid robot called the proto-clone. Why would they call it that? Because it's like a clone of a human being, right? This thing can sweat in order to cool off its inner functions and stuff. That's the exact same reason why we sweat, to cool off our inner functions and our body and stuff, right? How very interesting. Now let's talk about clones, right? Let's talk about the body parts. Let's talk about the pieces of us. Now, who am I? That's the question, okay? I once wrote a poem called Who Am I? And it was called My Hand. And it was all about my hand, like how do I make my hand move, okay? It was a very interesting poem. But my point is, am I my hand? If I cut off my hand, is a part of me gone? Am I gone? Or am I still here entirely? You see what I'm saying? We can keep cutting off body parts or whatever until we ask ourselves, which of these body parts is me? Where am I in the mix? You see what I'm saying? So this gets into cloning, and this is the whole reason why human cloning is allegedly off limits. Okay, it's even hard to find anything on the internet about human cloning. They've like scrubbed it from the internet completely, right? I could barely even find pictures within movies that feature human cloning. This one was even hard to find. But yes, human cloning, right? Now we have two different types of human cloning. One is the illegal type, which is reproductive cloning and actually cloning an entire human body. But the other type is cloning body parts. They call it therapeutic cloning, where they are totally okay with cloning a liver, you know, because some guy out there needs a liver so bad, or a heart, or a finger, or like the individual parts, right? And there's movies about this, specifically the movie The Island comes to mind, right? But they show this, they feature this all the time, that there is human cloning happening. It's just not being shown to you because of, you know, religious, you know, moral reasons and things of that nature, right? People are okay with getting a new liver for the guy that's dying or whatever. They don't ask where it came from. They don't want to know that it's probably from actual human beings that are being cloned, as the movie The Island shows us, underground and secret underground cloning facilities where they're actually cloning you. You have a clone. Now, this is all from me, okay? All of this is obviously my perspective and stuff, but I firmly believe that there are underground facilities that clone human beings. I also believe that there is a human being cloning project where they're collecting all of your DNA to store it in a type of Noah's Ark, to repopulate the world, to recreate the slave race, to recreate the robots, the humans, to do all of the work, as nobility sits comfy in its large puffy chairs. Now, in the movie The Island, the whole concept is that there's this underground secret facility where they're cloning celebrities and the super rich and stuff. They can't clone just the body part, because it doesn't survive very long. So they just clone a whole body. They allow the clones to have their little lives and stuff, and then they have a lottery. And whoever wins that lottery gets to go to the one place on Earth where there is no radiation on the surface, because they've lied to everybody. They've lied to all of these clones, which means they've programmed them, okay? But when one of them finds out, he breaks free. He wants to escape, right? We see this in different ways as well. So, for example, crisis actors, right? You can see it in the crisis actors. My theory is these are clones, okay? That I might be the same exact clone, but I believe that that's one of the reasons that clones are made. They all have different jobs. They'll have a different purpose. Their purpose is given to them from birth, okay? Probably even before that, down there in the cloning facilities in the underworld. And they're building them. How's that related to robots? This person is a slave. Okay, they're still serving a purpose, somebody else's purpose. They're working for somebody else just by naturally living their life. And I think that they use these clones, they train them underground, and then they send them up here for certain purposes, usually secret ops, right? Where they act as like the Men in Black or things like that. Now, here's another example as far as cloning organs and stuff, and this is just kind of a side tangent, but for example, they'll clone a human liver or a human organ of some type. They'll put it into a pig. The pig will be growing a human organ, human body parts in a pig, and then they'll harvest the pig, take the human body part, stick it into a human, right? This is just a transfer of material. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? If this guy has a pig organ, is he less human? Does he no longer have a soul? You know what I mean? These are questions that are legitimate to ask. But my point is, there's human DNA that is growing in the pig and pig DNA that is growing in the human. So whenever I talk about the atmosphere being electrically amplified and all of the radiation that's going to be prevalent in the world to come, it's no wonder why we have actual real records of pig people having existed. I've talked about that on my channel too. That's not fantasy. That's not fairy tales. That actually has happened. There have been eyewitness reports. There have been nobility who have been pig people. People that are said to have actually had pig faces and stuff, right? So there is a close relationship there. What is the relationship? Mutation, right? One becoming the other. And then of course we've got this other concept. What is this called? This is called, man, I can't remember, but it's when you live vicariously through the robot itself. As you can see, the guy on the left over there, he's got his virtual reality goggles on and stuff, but he's experiencing what the robot is experiencing somewhere else in the world, right? We're living vicariously through these robots. We have the ability to walk around in the world. So they're going to say, well, the quadriplegic guy can now move around as a robot. Just puts on his visor, goes around. They're going to show you all of the fun benefits. You can go on vacation and not leave your house. You can go meet people. You can go anywhere around the world. And they'll also include sensory perception too. So it won't just be visually, it'll be all the senses that they'll eventually incorporate into this, so that the actual human is just zoned out somewhere, plugged into the matrix, and they're living their actual life as a robot, which is pretty amazing to me. That's pretty mind-blowing to me, right? So we're already starting to put the human mind into the robots themselves. And I haven't even gotten into like Neuralink and Elon Musk's brilliant idea to put microchips into the human brain, right? And transhumanism, which is what this is really all about. To put the microchip into the human brain and therefore connect the humans to the internet and therefore to one another. And therefore we have like a hive mind possibility of learning, where when one person learns something or experiences something, they all learn it or experience it, like a sort of technological 100 monkey effect, right? But this is very interesting to me. This is robot, but there's the human, right? There's a transitional point between the two. And this is getting back to the Terminator, the self-healing robots, the liquid form that heals itself. I think I already put this one in here twice about how they have already invented liquid metal that can heal itself. Now, let's skip over to video games, the video game world. This is a video game. I know that looks realistic, at least it does to me. I'm an old man, but I mean, damn, that looks pretty realistic. This is from Grand Theft Auto 6. Which unfortunately isn't coming out until next year, but it looks amazing. This was created on this. I mean, they have an entire world, all the way down to like the sand and the waves, and it's just an entire world. And you can see, like, they even have like, you know, overweight robot people. I mean, these are all robots basically. You could say they're simulants. They're still robots. They're not real, but they look real. So they're robots to me, okay? Tomato, tomato. But anyways, this is in GTA 6. And they use Unreal Engine, which is like this advanced computer system, to simulate an entire world. It's not just, this is like This is not just like a video that someone put together. This is an actual world that somebody has created. Now you can go to that building in this world. You can drive around the town in this world. And this world here can perfectly replicate actual cities in our world. So we've got this idea of simulations after simulations, or simulations within simulations, within simulations, within simulations. Now, what is this starting to sound like, I ask myself? I call it the fractalverse, which is a looping, repetitious, holographic representation of what I call the mind of God, or all of reality. It's also, simply put, simulation theory, right? This gets really deep, because what is a human? But we're made of code. We're made of genes and DNA and sequences and stuff, right? We're made of frequencies and vibrations, as are all things, which means all things are simulated, or a dream-like state. Where does it come from? It comes from nowhere. Where do your dreams come from? Do you have to like build your dream, or do you just suddenly appear in this dream world? The dream world manifests suddenly all around you. People have shared with me many different dreams. I was just talking with someone recently who was talking about how she dreamed about this futuristic flying car thing, and she could tell me how it works and everything. She doesn't know how to make a flying car. You know what I mean? But these things manifest suddenly. It's very much like the Big Bang, I guess you could say, where everything comes out of nothing. It's very much like spontaneous creation by a godlike being that just wills things into existence, right? So we're getting really deep with this. This right here is not a human being. This is a robot, okay? This is on a screen. This is a video game character, basically. But it looks damn real. And they're getting damn close to it being real. That's the question, right? How close does it need to get before it actually is real? Now let's get to the paradox. Let's get to the recursion, the robot recursion part of this. What am I saying? I'm saying, simply put, that it's possible that it's not Elon Musk, that it's not presidents or even a hidden hand group of human elites that have this like overwhelming desire to replace their current slaves of humanity, which seem to be working out pretty good so far, with even better versions of robots that could potentially overthrow even them, right? I don't think so. I believe that if this is the case, that human beings are being led or deceived, or however you want to see it. I know a lot of people are going to try to force good and bad perspectives on the whole subject. That's fine. I get it. It's natural. Okay. That's a part of our conditioning and our programming and reality as we know it, this whole concept of polarity, right? But if that's the case, that we are just making our own replacements, that we are inevitably going to make humans, not bare humans, not organically reproduce them from ourselves inadvertently, but we're purposefully going to genetically recreate human beings, right? And what I mean by that is robots that we can no longer consider to be robots unless we force them to be our slaves, in which case they actually are robots. And as a matter of fact, the term should be applied to most people on Earth right now, because you're all a robot. You're all a slave. If we mean slave, come on, let's just be honest. We're all robots by definition, okay? If you're working for someone else, if you're paying taxes, if you're not your own leader and free, truly free to do anything you want to in life, then by definition, you're a robot. You're a slave. You know what I mean? But where's the line drawn? See this guy over here? He's living vicariously through the robot. He actually is the avatar. He is that robot, right? He's got a little phone in front of his face, right? So where do we draw the line between simulated, between what is real and what is not real, right? The paradox comes into play. It is that humans are recreating robots that are more and more human-like, with the goal of making them as perfect, comparably to a human, as possible, to make them human. But if those robots eventually do replace us, we're kind of eliminating ourselves in the process. It's like we're trying to recreate humanity, but in doing so, we might replace ourselves entirely. So what it is, it's a recursion. If this is true, so let's just say that's our theory. That is our hypothesis, right? That human beings today are actually the result, or could be the result, of advanced technology in the past. But it has no origin. The origin is the dream. The origin is the mind of God, right? But how does it continue to loop as we are created, right? Human beings are created perfect in the beginning. They're all perfect. They work perfectly. There's no sicknesses. There's no breaking down. There's no degradation. There's no aging. There's no none of this crap. Obviously, we're defective models now. Outdated. Still intelligent enough through experience to be able to recreate these better bodies and avatars and stuff like that, right? But we're the broke down version. We're the last ones. And we recreate with this newfound technology, this new avatar, this new form, this new body, this new human being, or a human that is now being instead of, a sentient human, basically, right? Now, this gets into the concept of God. Every time I've ever seen God portrayed, especially within, Christian circles and whatnot, God is drawn as a human. This is the creator. So let's just say that this is popular Michelangelo drawing, I think, right, on the Sistine Chapel. That's God. That's how Michelangelo saw God. Well, what does that look like? That looks like a human being, right? That looks like a man that made Adam and Eve that look exactly like him. That looks like a human. That also looks like a human. The bearded human in the sky. Why is God being drawn as looking like a human being? Unless God is, or at least I shouldn't say God, okay, because that gets into deeper philosophy, and that gets into my concept of the fractal verse, which, by the way, I have a dedicated page to my concept of all of creation and what the ultimate reality is. It's called the fractal verse, and then you can find that on my website, JayDreamerZ.com. Just go to Ancient Oblivion, click on that tab, scroll down to the fractal verse, click on that, and you can read all about it. But my point is, the creator is drawn time and time again as a human being. And as a matter of fact, it says in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, and God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Now, there's a lot, that's a whole rabbit hole we can go down too, but the point is, this image, right, the head, the shoulders, the chest, the arms and the legs and stuff, that's the image of the creator. And the creator is the image of the creation, inversely. So it is a recursion that humans, hypothetically, create the robots to be so human-like that eventually they become humans and replace humanity, and then they themselves forget that they're robots, and then they eventually start to break down, and they lose their energy, and they're less, super powered or whatever. They're not the perfect models any longer after hundreds and hundreds of years. And then through their experiences and their technology, they recreate robots again, which become humans again. This is the recursion. This is the cycle. This is the loop that we get caught in, right? Now, obviously, we're going to see this much differently. It's very easy to look at this and go, oh my God, that's terrible. Blasphemy. It's just total blasphemy. How can you say that we're all robots, right? Or how can you say that robots should be respected, or that robots should be considered sentient or alive? Well, personally, I think everything is alive. Personally, I think everything is connected. I think that anything that we perceive as separation is simply illusion within this dream. Within the dream, everything is connected. Everything is coded. Everything is a part of the one, which is exactly what Neo was called in the Matrix, the one, right? The ultimate name for all of the greater reality, which I like to label as the fractal verse, in pop culture, in movies, in books, they simply refer to that as it, because they don't know what it is. It's just this scary, inconceivable thing. So they call it, simply put. But yes, that leads to simulation theory. This is the evolution of robots, of slaves, of the workers. And there'll be different types, obviously. We're going to make different ones. They don't all have to be little possible replacements. But the concept of replacements is featured over and over and over again. And it's interwoven into the concept of the apocalypse and how there is this replacement race of humans, as the human race, that comes in, or seemingly comes in, to replace the modern humans, which are sort of seen as the broke down old school models, right? Now here's the sort of evolution of different robots over time. And you can see how they look very robotic, and you're not convinced that that's a human or anything. But as you keep looking at the progression, right, all the way to like the woman, there's a woman sitting behind me. And this is, keep in mind, this is what they're sharing with you now. Ultimately, the question is, if we're trying to rebuild humans, why don't we just go straight to the source? Why don't we look for some pure DNA? Grab that, kidnap those people, take them underground, the elite would say, and steal the parts we need, right? Let's just yoink their DNA. Let's just actually grab the blueprints themselves instead of trying to go through the loops of figuring it out. So here's a comparison. I was getting back to the simulation theory and stuff like that, right? Here's a comparison of the galaxy as it's imagined to look, or this is probably more a universe, and many galaxies are interwoven in here. As modern academics sort of imagines it to look, if we were to zoom out and see the whole universe, it looks like this, they imagine. This over here is a brain cell. These are all different neurons that are interconnecting and interwoven. Oftentimes it's called the web. It's a web of your mind. It is a web of energy. And it's replicating itself in many different forms, in many different ways. For example, on a small way locally, this is mycelium. This is a mycelial network. Now it's interesting because in one of the new Star Trek series, space that they're traveling through is called the mycelial network. It's all of space. This over here is a neuron and a cell. That over there is supposed to be like the universe. This over here is a representation of the internet. If you graphed it out, it looks the exact same. This over here is the city of London. It's just the same web over and over and over. It is the mind of God over and over and over, which is a simulation, you could say, over and over and over again. As the robot recursion into human beings and then back into robots continues the loop forever and ever and ever. That's my presentation for today. I hope you guys like that theory. I hope that you're into that. I hope you want to, share some comments with me. Whether you disagree or not, that's fine. We're not really here to debate or to argue, but we're here to be philosophers. We're here to be truth seekers. And like I said, that's why I'm going to be making my appearance at TRUTHERCON in Dallas coming up here in a few days. Click on the link in the description if you're interested in checking it out. If you want to support me personally, go to my Patreon. JayDreamerZ.com/Patreon. If you want to know more, go to my website, JayDreamerZ.com. But yeah, go to my Patreon if you want to show me some love, send some support my way, or even join the chat. I've got a 24/7 chat going on Patreon, as well as some other benefits too. I want to say thank you guys so much for all of your support. Until next time, I'm JayDreamer saying good vibes and goodbye.
Something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier on me if I turn away to flee. But there's something going on in the way we ignore.
forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up, time to wake up.